Hello and welcome to Newsfeed, your daily dose of what people are talking about online, from news stories to what's trending. So following Saturday's attack on the bridge between Russia and Crimea, a harsh escalation of war had been expected. And on Monday, Kyiv experienced what the BBC claimed was the largest scale attack on the capital since the Russian incursion began. Other locations around Ukraine were also hit in what many believed was Russia's revenge for the bridge attack. From most of the pictures we've seen today, many of the targets of the Russian strikes were civilian.
And this is not a military target. This is the center of the city. Tarashenko Park it's kind of like Hyde Park. It's just a beautiful oasis of peace.
There have been many images showing the desperation and terror a sustained attack brings, but each time you see shocked, scared people, it brings home how everyday civilian life can be rocked to the core. And there was this played out live on the BBC.
Was hit more than a dozen.
Okay, Hugo Bashega there, our correspondent in Kyiv, obviously for obvious reasons taking cover at that point.
Pretty shocking, huh? And as he's so often done during this conflict, Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky addressed his people.
The morning is difficult. We are dealing with terrorists. They want panic and chaos. They want to destroy our energy system. They're hopeless. The second target is people. Such a time, such goals were specifically chosen to cause as much damage as possible. But we are Ukrainians. We help each other. We believe in ourselves. We restore everything that is destroyed.
Of course, many civilians were sharing the strikes on social media. Ukraine's National Security and Defense Council issued a warning. It urged people not to publish, amongst other things, rockets flying or where they hit, names of streets, places of shelling, and any injured or dead. At the bottom in red, it reads, persons who commit these violations will be prosecuted as it is assistance to the enemy, even unintentionally. Earlier, Russian President Vladimir Putin met with his Security Council to discuss the attack on the bridge and Russia's response. After the meeting, he said Russia had carried out what he called a massive strike across Ukraine. Here's Dasha with more from Moscow.
The Crimean Bridge was indeed the red line, and many Russians were waiting for Moscow's response to come to this because they have labeled this as a terrorist attack carried out and perpetrated by the Ukrainian special services. So as the news broke out this morning, many of the Russian officials and establishments have said that finally this is happening. The head of Russia's Just Russia party, Sergei Mironov, said that after 7 months of mollycoddling with terrorists, it was not worth it. Some of the Russian lawmakers have also been saying that that was just the beginning and the destruction of the critical infrastructure has started. The establishment have also quoted the proverb popular in Russia, measure 7 times and cut once, when referring to the decision of Kyiv to blow up the Crimean Bridge. That stands for better safe than sorry. But definitely Russians have been surprised by the lack of the reaction in the West to the destruction of Russian civilian infrastructure, the Crimean Bridge, and say, don't you like to see the bridges being blown up, when referring to what happened to the Klitschko Bridge. So certainly the operation is ongoing, and the Russians are bracing for more news like that.
Last week, the richest man on earth published his suggestions on how to resolve the Ukraine conflict. Despite the ridicule and criticism he received, Elon Musk has not been deterred. He has now waded in on another geopolitical issue of our time, China and Taiwan. In an interview with the Financial Times, Musk suggested a special administrative zone for Taiwan that he thinks would reasonably be palatable, though it probably won't make everyone happy. While the Chinese ambassador to the U.S. praised Musk for his proposal, his Taiwanese counterpart didn't agree, saying that Taiwan's freedom is not for sale. Coincidentally or not, Tesla's owner has just hit a monthly record for sales in China. And in light of that piece of news, people expressed their anger on Twitter. People think Musk threw Taiwan under the bus just to appease his business relations in China, and then imagine what he would do if or when he eventually owns Twitter. Would he censor or hand over personal user data as China wants? And then this user reminded everyone that Musk has a battery factory in China. And let's not forget that China is the biggest electric car market in the world. Chris Bryant, a Labour MP in the UK, says Musk's opinions are wrong and the arrogance of the supremely wealthy who would barter with other people's freedoms is just breathtaking. From one rich genius to another, Kanye West's Twitter and Instagram accounts have been blocked after the singer-designer posted anti-Semitic content over the weekend. It was the first time that Kanye had tweeted in 2 years. One of his tweets read, "I'm a bit sleepy tonight, but when I wake up, I'm going DEFCON 3 on Jewish people." He added that he can't be anti-Semitic because Black people are actually Jewish. A spokesperson from Twitter has said Kanye's account is still live, but has been locked for violating Twitter's policies. The decision came a day after Meta restricted his Instagram to stop him from posting any content.
What is wrong with Kanye? Then he tweeted this. Someone take his phone away. Kanye's fall from grace really is one of the most shocking things that I have ever seen. How is this the guy who wrote My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy? How? It's becoming so much more difficult to separate the art from the artist. I don't know how much longer I can do it.
So many people say Kanye's recent behavior shows that he must be mentally ill. But then there are those who worry that calling someone mentally ill because of such hateful speech could actually stigmatize those suffering from mental health issues. Here, Matt asks, is Kanye mentally ill? He responds, yes, and then he asks again, does mental illness generally lead people to threaten violence against women and Jews? No, he says this time, and that what he's going through is not an excuse for this behavior, and to pretend otherwise is an insult to anyone with mental illness. And in this tweet, Christopher Boozy wrote, please stop using mental illness to explain away Kanye's anti-Semitic rants. Millions of people are dealing with mental health issues and they don't go in anti-Semitic rants. Protests in Iran have entered their 4th week in what's seen as the biggest challenge in decades to the country's clerical leaders. The unrest was sparked by the death of Mahsa Amini. She died in custody after being detained by Iran's morality police for allegedly not covering her hair properly. Hackers targeted Iran's state broadcaster over the weekend, interrupting a news program for 15 seconds with images of Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, Amini, and 3 other women who were killed in recent protests. Such flagrant displays of dissent against Ali Khamenei are rare, but protesters have been demanding his removal from power. They're also calling for the morality police to be disbanded. But who exactly are the so-called morality police, and what falls under its purview?
The morality police are a special unit attached to Iran's law enforcement and are backed by the Basij, a paramilitary force initially formed to fight in the Iran-Iraq War in the 1980s. Formerly known as the Gashti Irshad or Guidance Patrol, its task is to detain people who violate Iran's mandatory dress code law that requires women, irrespective of their faith, to cover their hair with a headscarf in public and wear loose-fitting clothes. But laws are believed to be vague on how the correct way to dress is defined, so it is effectively left to the authorities to prescribe them as they see fit. Since 1979, Iran has seen various forms of morality police. The group was emboldened during former Iranian President Mahmoud Ahmadinejad's rule. In 2013, during Hassan Rouhani's tenure, the group was less prominent. But under President Ibrahim Raisi, who came to power in 2021, the morality police has renewed its presence. A Gashte Irshad unit consists of male and female crew who watch over or patrol busy spaces in typical white vans with green stripes, cracking down on what they feel could be any dress code violations and improper behavior. People apprehended by the morality police are either given a verbal warning or in certain cases detained and taken to correctional facilities or re-education centers where they are educated on how to dress or act morally and made to pledge compliance with the state's modesty rules. While it's common for women to be questioned by the morality police, sometimes men too are whisked away due to attire and styles that are deemed to be inspired by the West. Offenders can even be fined. Amini had been taken for re-education by the morality police, never to return alive. Mahsa Amini's death has put a spotlight on the role and rules of Iran's morality police. Some Iranian lawmakers are calling for the morality police to be disbanded, for it squashes human dignity. And in a very rare show of condemnation, senior religious figures are also beginning to criticize the unit. However, pro-government rallies have also taken place in several parts of the country, with some Iranian politicians labeling the protests as a conspiracy hatched by the West.
میخوان سوار بشن بر یک موجی و ایجاد بلوا و اختشاش کنن. خیال میکنن که با این نوع حرکت ها میتونن ملت رو متوقف کنن.
The UN has called for an impartial inquiry into Amini's death and allegations that she was tortured.
The bottom line is that the imposition of such rules leads to human rights violations, a whole host of human rights violations against women.
And calls for accountability are echoing across the world.
All right, on to what's trending. So it turns out, as Trekkies would describe it, going where no man has gone before is not as exciting as it seems. You may remember 1 year ago, Star Trek legend William Shatner made history, becoming the oldest person to travel to the final frontier. Shatner went to space on one of Jeff Bezos' Blue Origin rockets, and excerpts from Shatner's new book now detail that despite how upbeat this footage seems, it was a rather dark experience, literally and figuratively. The Captain Kirk actor said he unexpectedly felt profound sadness, grief, and emptiness. Here are more excerpts from his book, not voiced by Shatner, of course, but by one of my lovely newsroom colleagues.
I saw cold, dark, black emptiness. It was unlike any blackness you could see or feel on Earth. I had thought that going into space would be the ultimate catharsis of that connection I had been looking for between all living things, that being up there would be the next beautiful step to understanding the harmony of the universe. It was among the strongest feelings of grief I have ever encountered. The contrast between the vicious coldness of space and the warm nurturing of Earth below filled me with overwhelming sadness. My trip to space was supposed to be a celebration. Instead, it felt like a funeral.
And it turns out what William Shatner felt there was actually not something out of the ordinary. The phenomenon is called the overview effect. And that fleeting feeling of darkness and grief is common among space travelers, including cosmonaut Yuri Gagarin. Essentially, traveling to space and viewing Earth from orbit can change you forever and shift how you think about our planet and life. Some astronauts say the wide, lonely expanse of space makes you realize how tiny and fragile Earth actually is. All right, back to Earth now, where you quickly take a shower, get dressed, make coffee, and run to the bus stop. While you wait for the bus to come, you realize you're not alone at the bus stop. In fact, it's literally buzzing. You could be at a bee bus stop, and they're slowly swarming around the UK and Europe. Set on top of a bus stop, these miniature gardens are full of pollinator-friendly flora, such as wild strawberries, poppies, and pansies. They attract bees in a bid to help fight the climate crisis. Clear Channel, the advertising firm, says the bee-friendly bus stops are already established in the Netherlands, Denmark, and Sweden. And the UK is planning to create 1,000 of these, and there is a growing interest in Canada and Australia for the project. And as their roofs absorb a lot of rainwater, it's hoped that they make a small contribution to offsetting the urban heat island effect. Brighton is one of the latest places to get butterflies and bees at their bus stops. A petition was signed by about 50,000 people to plant them.
We keep being reminded that pollinators are so important in the food chain, and this is where, of course, we as humans come in, and this will help do a little bit for nature, give a bit of a breathing space for nature, and it's a great partnership between the bus companies and the advertising company, Clear Channel, and the City Council as well.
I love bees, I love the environment, I love nature, I love everything about it. So I thought, well, why are we not doing this in Brighton? We're a big city, we have a lot of biodiversity places here anyway. So I was thrilled that my petition was able to push and get the response that I did so that we had the bus stops.
So it's all great news for the environment and everything, but not everyone is that thrilled about the new addition to bus stops. Now, this netizen says they ran away from the bus stop because a bee was chasing them. And then the same person tweeted this, "It's still chasing, I'm crying." Now, I'm not sure if that's a joke or it actually happened, but not many people are bee fans apparently. Like this one here saying that while they appreciate the insect, they just don't want to be stung. As well as flowers, bees also like anything sweet, like your orange juice you drink in the morning. Exactly what happened to this netizen, so maybe sugar-free coffee is the best option when waiting for the bus? And who knows, maybe your city will be the next one to get bee bus stops. And that brings us to the end of today's show. Find this show on YouTube and do subscribe to our channel. Bye and see you same time tomorrow.